Hope your weekends are going well. And we're going to talk about graphing trigonometric functions. So our first function is g of x equals 3 sine of x plus pi over pi minus 2. So first thing I want to do is look at it in terms of a, b, and c. So 3 is my a value. B is what's in front of x inside the parentheses, which in this case is 1. C is the phase shift, so it's the number that's being added or subtracted to pi, but remember it's to x, but remember it's the opposite, so it's negative pi. And D is the one at the end, and that controls the graph going up or down. So first thing we want to look at is the pieces of information. So period is 2 pi over b, in this case 2 pi over 1, or just 2 pi. Okay, so that's how often it's going to repeat. Frequency is the reciprocal of it, so 1 over 2 pi, okay, and that's your intervals. Maximum is would be your highest value. So the 3 out in front, your a value, controls the maximum. But our graph shifts up at the same time, so we're going to be going up 3, or have a maximum of 3, but we're down 2 to begin with. So our maximum is going to be at 1. Okay, and I know this because d is negative 2. So there's my d. And my a is 3, and so if I add those together, we get 1. If I subtract them, so negative 3 minus 2, I get negative 5, and that's my minimum. And if you remember, amplitude, we talked about it in class, is just the a value, the absolute value of the a value, so you make sure that it's 3. Midline is y equals d, so in this case y equals negative 2, and your phase shift is the c value. Okay, so those are all the values that we're going to need. Now the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to graph the basic sine function. Okay, sine always starts at 0, and remember it's up 1, and then it goes down 1, and back to 0, and there's one full period of it, and we can continue this pattern both to the right and to the left. So back up, and back down, and in the negative direction we go down first, 0, up, 0, down, 0, and I'm just going to use a dashed line. To indicate that basic function. And then we need to apply all the values that we talked about. First thing I'm going to do is start with the midline. That's a horizontal line here at y equals negative 2. Okay, and that's going to be my baseline for my new graph. Now we have a phase shift here of negative pi, and we have an adjustment on the vertical of negative 2. So I'm going to move all the zeros next. So I'm going to take 0, 0, and it's going down 2, and it's going a full period of pi in the negative direction. So I move over a whole period of pi. And there's my first one. I take my next 0, I go down 2, and I go again a period of pi over. So in this graph, a period of pi is 2 lines. And my next 0, go down 2 and over, over 2, down 2, and over 2. Basically, you're going to notice that all the zeros line up underneath one of the zeros that's already there. Okay? For this particular one. It's not always the case. Now I'm going to move my maximums and my minimums. So I'll start with the maximums. So each maximum, I'm going to move 2 pi in the negative direction. So to the left, 2 pi. And then I'm going to go down to my baseline here, my green line. I'm going to count up. 1, 2, 3. And the reason I'm counting up 3 from that is because my amplitude is 3. Okay, so I'm going to do that with each of my maximums. I'm going to go over to the left 2 times, come down, and go back up 1, 2, 3. Okay, and they all come across at 1. So repeat the pattern for all of my maximums. And then I'm going to go and back and do the same thing with all the minimums. I'm going to make the minimum move to the left twice, and then go to my midline, but instead of going up 3 times, this time I'm going to go down 1, 2, 3. Do that with each of the minimums. To the left 2, down to the green line, and then go down 1, 2, 3 from the midline. Left 2, and I'm off the graph. So I missed one though. I should have a 1 right over here on the right side, just by looking at the pattern. And then from there, I can draw my graph. Up and then down. Oops. Yeah. Down. Up. Down. Up. Down. And there we go. And that is our graph of the function 3 sine x plus pi minus 2. And that would be the red line. Moving to graph number 2. H of x equals cosine of x minus pi over 2 plus 2. So again, I'm going to go in and fill my ABCs. So A is 4, B in front of x is there's nothing, so it's a 1. C is the opposite, so it's just pi over 2. And D is 2. And so that means my period is going to be 2 pi over B, so in this case 1. And then my frequency is the reciprocal, so 1 over 2 pi. We have a maximum of 4, let's start the midline of it. So the midline on this is going to be y equals 2. So our maximum is going to be 2 plus the amplitude, so 4, which is 6. And our minimum is going to be the midline minus the amplitude, so that's negative 2. And our amplitude is 3. Nope, I lied. 4. It's the A value. And then phase shift is the C value. So in this case, C is pi over 2. It's our C value. And again, like last time, I'm going to do a base cosine graph. So we know those start at 1 on 0, and we go 0, and then we go negative 1, 0, there's almost there, and then back to 1 again, there's 1 full cycle, and back to 0, and then back to negative 1. And in the other direction, we go 0, negative 1, 0, 1, 0, negative 1. So basically sine and cosine are a pi over 2 phase shift from each other. Not that you have to know that, but it's useful if you think about it. So there's our basic cosine function. So let's get our midline in there at positive 2. Okay, so there's our midline. Y equals 2. Okay, and like last time, we're going to move all the zeros first. Now this time, our phase shift is only a pi over 2. So that means each of the zeros, it's only moving to the right 1. So pi over 2, and I'm just going to put all those on my midline. Each of them I move over 1 and right on the midline. And then over 1 and right on the midline. So all I'm doing is taking all my zeros, going to the right once, and going up onto the midline. This last one I just know based off the pattern that's there. So again, the second thing we'll do is the maximums. And again, the maximums are going to the right ones. And then I go to the midline and I go up the amplitude. So I'm at negative pi over 2. So I'm going to go to the right once, find my midline, and go up 1, 2, 3, 4. And there's my amplitude. And then find the next one here at 0. So we go to the right once, and we go up to the midline, and we go up 1, 2, 3, 4. You'll notice the maximums are at 6, like we found earlier. And one more of those to the right one, and go up from midline 1, 2, 3, 4. And I do the same thing with the minimums, but we go down. So to the right one, come to the midline, and I go down 1, 2, 3, 4. Minimum, and go right one, go to the midline, and go down 1, 2, 3, 4. And they're all at negative 2, just like we found out earlier. And one more of those to the right one, up to the midline, down 1, 2, 3, 4. And with that, I've got all my points, and I can draw my curve. And that is 4 cosine of x minus pi over 2 plus 2. Last graph, I'm going to drop my marker here. Last graph is j of x equals negative 3 tangent of x plus pi over 2. So a is negative 3, b is, again, nothing in front of the x, so 1. C is negative pi over 2, and D is 0. Okay, so our period, now tangent is different than cosine and sine. The period is pi over b instead of 2 pi. So this is pi over 1, which is just pi. Frequency, still the reciprocal. Okay, let's get our midline. Y equals 0. Our amplitude is going to be the absolute value of negative 3, which is 3. And so now I can find my max. It's the midline plus the amplitude, 3. And the minimum is the midline minus the amplitude, so negative 3. And our phase shift is C still, which is negative pi over 2. So that means we're going to move to the left 1 unit. This time I'm not going to draw out the basic tangent function because I don't want to get it to be confusing to you. So we'll go ahead and start on this one by drawing all of our asymptotes. Normally the asymptotes are here at pi over 2. But if we move it pi over 2 units to the left, then it ends up on 0. And then our period is pi, so that means that we go a pi unit away from the 0 in each direction, and we continue that pattern. And I continue to move pi units over. Oops. And so that's the last of my vertical asymptotes. So next I'm going to throw the midline in there, which is straight across the middle of the graph. Okay, it's our x-axis. And then we start to graph it. Now keep in mind, okay, we have a negative in front of this. Normally tangent has 0 and then it goes up 1 to the right and down 1 to the left. But, and then we come up like this. But in this case, we're talking negative. So that means that we're going to go up 1, or we're going to go to the left first, and we're going to go up. And it's a 3, so we're actually going to go up 3. And we're going to go to the right and go down 3. So we're halfway between pi over 2 and 0 and pi over 2 and pi. And then all we have to do is come from the asymptote. That wasn't drawn very well. Let's try that one more time. Come through the asymptote, through the middle, and approach the next asymptote. And we do that with each of the areas there. So here and down here. Something like that. So in the center, and then at 3 and down at -3. And we come down, curve through the middle, and back to the next asymptote. And remember, asymptotes are things that are not crossed. So you can get this. You get to do this 2 more times, 3 more times actually, if I can count right. And being that it's Friday after school and I'm still here, I can't count very well. So I hope you guys enjoyed the rally today. I thought it was fun to watch. And I can't draw. I'm telling you, it's Friday, I need to be home. And almost there. So remember that in order to get the book, you need to take the notes along with this on a piece of line paper and show it to me on Monday. And that right there is how do you graph a trig function, a tangent function. And that's your notes for the weekend. Have a good weekend. See you on Monday.